Actually, I'll be kind of like, that's pretty dope. What up, dude? I was looking for an excuse to blow off the entire rest of my day and go out for a beer. Sup, girl? You up? Kevin, what sort of introduction is this to an episode? I had such a great time with you last night, baby. It's uncomfortable reading these words from you, Kevin. I've never met a girl who was willing to do that thing with their earlobes before. Oh, God, Kevin. And at first I thought you were crazy when you pulled out that can of Spam behind the nightstand, but you really opened my eyes to a whole new world of experiences. Yeah. This reminds me of that Lonely Island song where he's like, and she wanna fuck me like they fuck Bin Laden. Oh, Bin Laden. It's a great ass song. Banger, but weird. God, and that thing you did with your elbows, haven't stopped thinking about it all day. This feels so... Kevin! Oh, shit. Hello, Simon. No, that first text was meant for somebody else. You could just ignore it. Oh, my, Kevin. What are you up to?
Come.
Sorry about that. It's that time of the week again, which means it's time for everyone's second favorite meaning of the acronym FMF, Florida Man Friday. What the fuck is the other acronym of FMF? I don't even have my phone on me, Kevin. Fuck it. I'm looking it up, Kevin.
12 seconds later.
Knowing Kevin, FMF's going to stand for like Fisting Munchkins Friday or something.
What?
FMF meaning familial Mediterranean fever. I don't think it's probably that one. Oh, fuck my face. Okay. I knew it'd be something like that. Unless you're talking about the familial... The fever, whatever.
No.
And if you're confused as to what people's favorite meaning would be, Simon, as a hint, I'll say that it's at least 1,000 times better than MFM. What the fuck is MFM? Kevin! MFM meaning. What is couples MFN? I don't know. Oh no, it's the devil's threesome. Oh no. But I'm hardly the only person to ever dial the wrong number. In fact, I'm sure every single person watching this has dialed a wrong number before. Yeah, like often. I once called someone the other day, just in my phone. They're like, hello? Just someone I hadn't talked to for ages. And they're like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, I don't know, you called me. And they're like, bro, you called me. Oh, no, I did. I can see that now. I must have like pocket dialed you. And I can't believe pocket dialing is still a thing in like 2024. Well, except maybe Zoomers that are watching, as they can't possibly imagine a world in which you had to memorize a person's phone, the phone number of every person you knew, and dial the entire thing one digit at a time whenever you wanted to talk to them. Yeah, I had the phone numbers of my friends memorized, like back in the 90s. It's not just you and I that are guilty of making this mistake, though. So today we'll be exploring the world of Florida Man dialing the wrong number. Wow, we're like, where's that barrel, Kevin? Because I need you to scrape the bottom of it. Florida men accidentally text police officers about drug deals a lot. There are so many of these stories that I could easily fill out multiple entire episodes with these entries. Well, go on then, Kevster. But that would be very boring and repetitive. All right, don't, whatever. I guess I'm the only one who likes reading the same thing over and over again. Every night I go to bed. And I open my book, and by open my book, I mean I turn on my book, and it's like I just end up reading the same page that I read yesterday, and then falling asleep. It takes me like a year. I read it for the second time, that giant Stephen King book, the Dallas 63 or 11/22/63 or whatever it's called, about the shooting of JFK. And I think it took me over a year. I would like to think the odds of someone texting an unknown number for the first time, doing so while they're trying to either buy or sell drugs and typing the number incorrectly while coincidentally dialing a police officer's cell number by mistake are astronomical. Yeah, and yet it seems to happen at least once a year in Florida. What are the odds that you just accidentally dial a police officer? Hey, mate. Yeah, no, I'm looking to score some Charlie. What? I'm willing to concede that at least one of these times the person was probably set up and someone intentionally gave them a cop's number. Oh, that's so funny. It's like, yeah, no, I got weed. And it's just like, you just don't like the douchebag. So you're like, yeah, here's my number. It's just the number of like the local constabulary. But the majority of these were almost certainly genuine accidents. Of course, how these stories go seems to vary wildly. In 2018, an unknown Florida man texted a detective in Gainesville saying, "Hey, do you have some of that bud? I might need some." The officer responded by texting back a picture of his badge with a message, "I think you have the wrong number. Drugs are no good for you." That's a good response, because I mean, what's he gonna do? He's gonna like chase down the guy who's like just looking for a little bit of bud. Do police in America? It's like legal. Is it federally legal? Bud is weed, right?
Yes.
Definitely. And they're not going to chase this down. It's just some dude looking to buy weed. Although now the police officer's like, "God, I wonder what number is." It's probably off by like one digit, isn't it? His number and a drug dealer's. The center then apologized. It seems like that was the end of the conversation. The Gainesville PD shared a screenshot of the text message exchange on their Facebook page stating, "PSA, if you're looking to score drugs, please double check the number before you text. Also, drugs are bad, okay?" I like this. They got a nice sense of humor. Like, drugs are bad. Fortunately for the person who sent the message, that seems to have been the end of it. In most cases, however, it seems that the people sending these erroneous texts aren't usually so lucky. Maybe it all depends on who was the one to receive the text rather than any specific protocol in place. What 29-year-old Florida man William Lamberson learned back in 2015 was that he would have fared a lot better if it texted a random detective with a sense of humor rather than texting the captain of the Martin County Sheriff's Narcotics Unit. Yeah, you want to like text just the random Bobby who's on the street doing the patrol who probably smokes weed himself. Wait, do they drug test police officers? Probably. That's rough, man. It's like, although I guess if it's legal, then you can do whatever the fuck you want. William had apparently received the phone number from someone he met at 7-Eleven the night before his first text. There was no response, so almost 3 weeks later he texted again. The captain replied, "Who is this?" "Hello, mysterious stranger. My name is so-and-so. I reside at so-and-so. My national social security number is this. Come find me. I'll be waiting." The captain replied, "Who is this?" and Williams explained who he was and how they'd met. And he was asked again, "Who is this?" That already feels suspicious, or at least like a wrong number, but William disagreed. After explaining again and being asked what was up, he said how bad he wanted to smoke really bad and asked the captain if he had any weed. The captain's like, "I got fuckloads of weed that I confiscated." Then the captain replied, "I don't know you. Send a pic." Again, from the outside, this feels fairly sus, and like William really should have known better, dude. Yes, and this, I don't know. Whenever I'm like having not like a sensitive conversation, but like, I don't know, let's say theoretically that I was interested in the acquiring of drugs. And it's like, I would not text it. It's just that's a quick phone call, isn't it? Because paper trails. That said, I'm sure dealers are pretty paranoid about agreeing to drug deals with unknown numbers, so I suppose I wouldn't be surprised if this seemed like a totally normal interaction. William sent a picture and the two exchanged a few more texts, at which point the captain asked if William had any hooks for blow. It's getting more serious, isn't it? Yeah, it's like, I need some weed. And some heroin. Despite needing to source his weed from strangers at 7-Eleven, it turned out that yes, weirdly enough, William did have a connect. They agreed to meet that night, at which point William was promptly arrested for possession of cocaine with intent to sell. Wait, is blow cocaine? I don't know. I don't know much about hard drugs. He was held on $40,000 bail and eventually pled no contest. William was sentenced to 6 months in jail and 2 years probation, and undoubtedly really wished that he had texted the light-hearted detective that we mentioned earlier instead. For anyone wondering, because I've seen a lot of discourse about this case in particular, no, this is not entrapment. If you send an unsolicited text to a police officer saying, "Hey, want to commit a crime with me?" and the reply is, "Sure, can we also commit this very similar crime as well?" this is not even close to the definition of entrapment. Besides, Williams' initially proposed crime was arguably worse anyway, since weed is a Schedule 1 drug and cocaine is only Schedule 2. What are you talking about? No fucking way. Weed is a more serious drug in America than coke? Dude, in the UK, I'm pretty sure cocaine is a Class A drug, the worst, and I think weed's like a C or a D. Are there D-class drugs? I don't know. It's not serious. No, Simon, that's not a joke. Oh, well, thanks for clarifying, Kevin. Wow. Florida man pocket dials 911 and accidentally reveals a murder plot. This is so much worse. There's this funny quirk of cell phones that I was totally unaware of until I started writing this script. Funnily enough, I didn't actually learn it because of this entry. It came up in something I saw while writing the intro. As it turns out, though, most cell phones, or at least Androids, I'm less clear about iPhones, have a built-in shortcut that most people are unaware of. Although the setting can be turned off, by default, if you press the power button 5 times in a row, it will dial 911. Yes, I discovered this. Like, I got I'll typically keep my phone in like my breast pocket, and so I'll just be like listening to music or whatever, or like a podcast, and I'll often just like reach in and adjust the volume. And sometimes, you're not quite sure which is the power side, which is the volume side. I'll just be like doing this. Always do this for ages. Then I got like a new phone. That was many years ago now, but I'm like doing this, and then I open it up and it's like, oh, you've dialed why have I dialed 112? How have I done this? Like the European 911. I'm like, have I done this? Why am I connecting to the police? And then I did it a few times. And I'm like, what's going on? Eventually I look it up, and apparently there was some new feature on iPhones where it's like, if you do that, then it dials them. You can turn it off. I found out about this in a story from Kentucky where a 17-year-old kid accidentally pocket-dialed 911 while playing Rainbow Six Siege, and the operator heard him say, "I killed 2 people," something he was telling his teammates through his headset. Although police arrived ready to storm the house, things de-escalated very quickly, and everyone involved handled the situation very well. I bet that kid was white. I'm glad it's not funny. I don't know why I laughed. It's like shit. I'm glad I saw that story, though, because not only was it pretty funny, but I had also already read the upcoming story and was trying to figure out how the somebody would manage to butt dial 911. Well, even in the past, it was possible, because with I don't know, an old Nokia brick phone or whatever, you could dial 999, which I guess is easier, because then it could just be like the pocket pushing against it, without unlocking the phone. Anyway, while the first story was a funny, albeit initially terrifying situation, the same could not be said of the phone call made by 24-year-old Florida man Scott Simon in May of 2016. Scott pocket dialed 911 and reportedly can be heard saying that he was going to follow another man home and kill him, though unfortunately the 911 recording was not made public. How it could probably get that through a FOIA, right? However, just a few minutes after this call was placed, 33-year-old Nicholas Walker was shot and killed while driving down I-95. In a scene that would have been cut from even the cheesiest of action movies for being too unrealistic, after Nicholas was shot, his car drove into a guardrail and exploded into flames. I didn't think cars exploded. I thought that was just a movie thing. That's got to be every assassin's wet dream. And I only say assassin because police believe that Scott didn't actually pull the trigger, just that he was the one to orchestrate the murder. But what was the motive? Was this some sort of gang rivalry? Was one of the men banging the other's wife? No, it was nothing so spectacular, and frankly, those motives don't feel Florida man enough. This murder was just another night at the local Waffle House. Of course it was. If there's one thing I've learned from Kevin, it's that Waffle House can get wild. Wait, or is that the breakfast place? The pancake place. I don't remember. One of these places apparently is wild, like 24 hours, and it's just apparently crazy, according to Kevster. Scott and Nicholas were seen on security cameras getting into some sort of fight at the Waffle House, and as far as I can tell, it was the first time that they'd ever met one another. It was because of that fight that Scott wanted to murder Nicholas, and it was probably because of the security camera footage that he had the friends do the deed for him. After all, if Nicholas was last seen on camera fighting Scott, then he'd probably be the first person the police questioned. I mean, they're going to question him anyway. Because he had a fight with him. But if he was able to establish a rock-solid alibi for himself, then it would be easy to tell the cops, I don't know, man, I never met the guy before, but he seemed like a real asshole, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into lots of fights. This guy's crazy. If he gets in a fight at a bar, and then he goes home to establish an alibi while hiring... I know it's his mates, but hiring an assassin to go and kill him afterwards. That's like some fucking Lex Luthor shit. That's just my speculation, but it makes sense for that to have been the plan. Unfortunately for Scott, and fortunately for justice, his accidental phone call put the police on his ass in a big way. Scott and his 2 accomplices, Florida men Michael Depra and Ronald Desenor, were all arrested and charged with first-degree murder. All 3 men were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Boom! Little mistakes, big consequences, my dudes. Careful, careful. Florida woman accidentally texts Bobby instead of John. Desperate, horny men are one of America's most abundant renewable resources, and even those of us who aren't desperate still tend to be rather enthusiastically horny. As such, you'd probably think there would be no shortage of clients for sex workers, or at least you might, until you remembered that the US has archaic laws outlawing people exchanging sex for money, unless there's a camera in the room. Yeah, what's that? Is it a Family Guy where the weird dude, giggity guy? I haven't watched Family Guy in too long. He's like with a sex worker, and he's like, why is there a camera? It's like, oh, it's just against the police shop. Or there's some joke like this. Really good. And yes, I realize it is much more complicated than that. Not to me, Kevin. While the idea... aren't there... I mean, I guess it is to me. There are places in the US where, isn't it famously legal in Nevada? Don't they have that? What's that big brothel there? It's not the Playboy brothel. There's some brothel like that. While the idea of circumventing prostitution laws just by setting up a camera and calling it an adult film instead sounds fun and easy, there are so many steps required in making your home movies meet the legal requirement of an adult film that the only way to comply with them is actually to become a legitimate production company, which honestly, f***ing good. Because that's an industry that obviously is pretty ripe for people being exploited, and there should be... I don't know, I'm not a big regulation dude, but in this kind of industry, you need just fucking loads of regulation, okay? As much as possible in that industry. At that point, it's no longer a legal loophole, it is a career choice. But I'm getting slightly sidetracked, so let's get back to Florida, specifically 27-year-old Florida woman, Shakita Alacia Warren. Shakita was a sex worker based in Pensacola, and she was having a bit of a slow night. Either that was because of the reason we just went over, or maybe it's because this happened on Christmas. Who can say, really? With nothing scheduled for the evening, Shakita sent a text message to a client named Sam to see if he wanted to have some fun that night. At least she thought she did, but it turns out that she texted the county sheriff's investigator. Because sex work is a very serious crime that requires the police department's full and immediate attention, even on major holidays, the investigator made plans to meet up with Shakita that evening at a Motel 6, but not before he reportedly got her to send some nude pics.
What?
Why, dude? That's weird. Which, if true, is not only gross and unnecessary, but it makes me wonder if he went through with the sex before arresting her too. You know, just to do his due diligence and make sure she really was intended to go through with the transaction. Hell, dude, this is so weird. Shakita was arrested at the motel and charged with prostitution, for which she received 6 months probation and 25 hours of community service. What are we doing? Just give her a f***ing fine. What the f***? That was back in 2013, and she never faced charges as a repeat offender for that crime, but she is currently on trial for arson in the first degree, which really makes me wonder what the hell has been happening in her life. Holy shit, that's a step up. Last time you were in it for prostitution, what now? First degree arson. I don't even know what first degree arson is. How can there be a second degree arson? It's like, well, I kind of wanted to start a fire, kinda, sorta. Florida man texts detective instead of wife, gets arrested for murder. On January the 30th, 2018, 52-year-old Florida man David Romig called police to tell them that an intruder had broken into his home and shot his living girlfriend while they were in bed. David said he woke up to an intruder placing his hands over his mouth, and then when he tried to grab the intruder's arm, the gun in the intruder's hand went off, shooting his girlfriend in the head. The rest of the story is not clear, but I guess the intruder got spooked and ran off after the murder or something. I mean, who knows? As you can guess, this was all a lie anyway, so of course it's not going to make a lot of sense. Police already were suspicious of David. To start, it's always the husband/boyfriend. Look, I do a podcast called Casual Criminalist, which you should subscribe to, and boy, is it ever. It certainly didn't help matters that he was the sole beneficiary named in his 64-year-old girlfriend's will. What a coincidence. As police began investigating the evidence, they were quickly concluding that David's version of events didn't add up. But at the exact same time that was happening, the lead detective in the case received 2 text messages from David. The first said, "I think they are going to arrest me," followed by, "think they are going to arrest." David explained that he had meant to text those to his wife. Not only did these clearly sound like anxious messages from someone who knew he was about to be caught, but it showed that he shared his inner feelings with his wife. That gave them reason to look at his other text messages to her, which included some gems like, "Things don't add up. I am afraid I did something I don't remember, and if I did this, I will kill myself." On the other hand, that seems like pretty solid defense stuff. To be like, "I'm crazy. he's privately texting this to someone about how he's concerned that he did something he doesn't remember. And he's like, oh my God, if I did this, I will kill myself. Is like, that is showing some serious regret or not automation. What's the word where it's like you commit something and you don't know you're doing it? It's one of the few defenses to murder. Oh, and for anyone who is confused as to what exactly David's relationship with his wife was, well, so am I. Since he was texting rather than talking to her, I can only assume they were separated but never bothered to divorce, and that's why he had a live-in girlfriend. Oh, right, yeah, he was his girlfriend. Oh, no, the 64-year-old. None of that is ever explained in the available information, and honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. After being arrested, David copped what happened, or at least as best he remembered. He admitted that he'd been experiencing blackouts and hearing voices for a while. He regained his senses after a blackout to find his girlfriend dead, at which point he decided to stage the scene to make it look like a home invasion. If I'm the defense lawyer, I'm like, this is pretty good shit. Because he privately texted this to like his ex-wife. This is really like compelling evidence of mental illness. There was no chance David was ever going to get away with this, but the accidental text messages to the detective certainly sped up the process. David was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. That feels heavy for someone who does seem to be mentally ill. Florida woman's wrong number sparks 20-year friendship. There have been multiple murders in this episode, so let's end today with something a little bit lighter. You know, the sort of human interest tripe that I absolutely loathe when it appears on the evening news instead of actual important things that need to be covered. Yeah, I don't know, when I was a boy, it'd be like, okay, you got the main news, and then it's like, and now to our presenters around the country. And it would be like, oh, okay, now it's basically the news that no one gives a shit about. It's like, the local branch of Sainsbury's is having, the closing hours. No one cares. The local school is having a fun run. I mean, that's the sort of shit that makes me want to kill myself. Just a joke. Luckily, this isn't a news program, so we're free to talk about whatever the fuck we want. Fuck yeah! Speaking of, remember when I was talking earlier about Zoomers who probably never had to remember anyone's phone number? Well, some of the older Zoomers may have taken offense to that because they were born back before every child was given their first smartphone in utero. But to those years, I'd ask you this. Did you know there was a time when you only had to dial 7 digits to make a phone call instead of 10? Well, of course. I mean... Oh, wait, Kevin's asking this as Zoomers. It's like, yeah, there was... I mean, I'm sure originally there were probably like 100... oh, what's your phone number? 719. That's it. Oh, sure. We all had 10-digit phone numbers. I'm just trying to... My phone number's 9 digits. Without the country code. Oh, and there's no 0 at the front. In the UK? Ooh, 11 digits, but we have a 0 in front. But if you were calling within your own area code, you only had to dial the last 7 digits. Oh, right, yeah. No, when I was a kid, we only had to dial the last 6. America's just bigger. I guess you just have more phone numbers. And that's all anyone did, because who the hell could afford long-distance calls? Hell, if you grew up near a major city like me, you might have even been able to call multiple area codes only using 7 digits. If you were near Boston, anyone in the area codes of 617, 781, 508, and 978 could call each other without needing to actually dial the area code. It certainly made numbers easier to remember, but in the very late 1990s and early 2000s, that sadly came to an end. The proliferation of pagers and cell phones required a massive increase in the number of available phone numbers, and 7-digit dialing became an untenable relic of the past. We had to switch to 10-digit dialing, and especially for those of us that had enjoyed the ability to 7-digit dial between local area codes for years, it resulted in a lot of wrong numbers. Such was the case with Florida woman Gladys Hankerson, possibly. Anyway, she also could have just been really, really bad with numbers. Regardless, in the early 2000s, she tried to make a phone call to her sister, but she switched 2 numbers in the area code and called Mike Moffat in Rhode Island instead. She apologized and hung up, but then it happened again and again and again, not all in a row, obviously. She just kept accidentally making the same mistake over the course of an extended period of time. I get how this happens, though, because I would be in this situation. It's like, call that Mike guy. I gotta remember that those 2 numbers are the other way around than I think. And then the next time you call it, be like, wait, the other way around that I thought, or the other way around that I originally thought I thought? Am I making sense? I'll just start doubting myself. Eventually, Mike decided that if she was going to keep calling him anyway, they may as well chat instead of hanging up immediately. You guys have got too much time on your hands. It was actually something they both needed at the time too. Gladys was divorced and had just lost her son, and Mike had just lost his grandparents, so they were able to fill a void for one another. This went from like me being like, that's weird, to this being so fucking wholesome. Mike was also working at a call center at the time, so he was used to talking on the phone all day, and of course, Gladys loved to gossip on the phone because her name was Gladys. I've seen enough of which to know what to expect of anyone with that name. Even though Gladys did eventually get the hang of dialing her sister's full number, she and Mike continued to talk on the phone every couple of months for the next 20 years. They never met in person, nor did they have any plans to, but fate had other plans for them. It was Thanksgiving 2021, and Mike was in Florida with his family. They were driving somewhere and got stuck waiting for a drawbridge that was up. After 10 to 15 minutes of waiting for the bridge to come down, Mike suddenly realized that they were only like 2 miles from Gladys's house. It is a little weird that he knew exactly where her house was despite living over 1,000 miles away and having never met her in person. And showing up at her doorstep might look like unannounced stalker behavior, like if Simon were to get a knock on the door while recording this and suddenly found me standing there in Prague. Actually, I'd be kind of like, that's pretty dope. What up, dude? I was looking for an excuse to blow off the entire rest of my day and go out for a beer. Let's fucking go! I'm waiting for Kevin to knock on the door. I thought maybe he'd timed this or something. Well, obviously he didn't, but you never know. There's always a little chance. Kev? Normally the answer to both questions would be yes, but this is a good story, so we're not supposed to think about those things. Besides, maybe he knew her address because they mailed each other Christmas cards every year or something. I don't think it's that weird. They've talked to each other they've talked to each other 6 times a year for the last 20 years. 6 times a year for the last 20 years. Yeah. That's like a long friendship. And most importantly, Gladys was thrilled to meet her longtime friend in person anyway. I guess the moral of this story is that if you get a phone call from a number you don't recognize, you should always answer it. Sure, 900... Wait, is this just wholesome? Is this just a wholesome answer? Entry. Mm-hmm. Sure, 999 times out of 1,000, it's some scammer who wants to steal your identity and money, but 1 time out of 1,000, it'll be the friend that you never thought you needed. And while I know that sounds like horrible advice, I'm not concerned. Even if the phone call is from a number you do recognize, this is 2024. I mean, who the fuck answers the phone anymore? Yeah, I'm always like, if it's important, they'll call me again. Or, I don't get that many. I think we don't have this epidemic of robocalling that America seems to have. I'm sure it's coming, but... Oh my god, what are the odds? I'm actually getting a phone call right now. I'm going to end this video because that's where it ends, and I'm going to answer my phone because I know who it is. It's a delivery. Thanks for being here. I got fuckloads of weed.